I do want to apologize first. I am recording out of my car currently because my girlfriend is in my room taking a test, which I can't be in there. But I did want to go over and start answering some people's questions. So to briefly start with justifying whether or not the atomic bomb was useful on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, something the U.S. military and a lot of the Allied forces learned was when fighting in the Pacific Front. The Japanese were very passionate in the way they fought. They never gave up really easily. They would pretend to give up and then surprise attack you to catch us off guard. So it was a lot different than trying to fight a uniformed force like we kind of do today for the most part. But one side of the argument is that if we were to drop the atomic bomb, yes, there would be a huge loss of life. But as we learned in invading Iwo Jima and other islands and other little battles during that war, that the amount of loss of life then was also pretty huge. And when it came down to deciding whether or not to try and show a strong arm and drop two bombs that haven't ever been seen before, yes, it would cause a lot of damage, but maybe it could bring a quick and swift end and force them to want to surrender or enter a treaty by being afraid of the fact that having another bomb could be dropped on them and causing all that kind of damage and that huge loss of life. I think in the end it was the right decision, because looking at how hard it would be to invade mainland Japan, I mean, you can see from they used the idea of D-Day, how difficult that was, and that wasn't even mainland Germany, and that was a huge mass of forces all invading that one side, with Germany spread out fairly thin because they were fighting two fronts. So to look at that side of it, it does make sense that yes, the atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima was justified. But if you look at it from the other perspective of there was a lot of innocent lives that maybe may have not been taken had an invasion been done, and it might have been then a huge loss of life on the military side between Japan and the United States military. Maybe we wouldn't have had hardly any, if any, civilian lives lost. Obviously, there are going to be some lost at any point, because even when we were invading Iwo Jima and stuff like that, there's people jumping off the ridges and committing suicide because they thought that we were horrible people based on the brainwashing that Japan had done. So I think this is probably one of the greatest questions a history class can ask, especially when it comes to the Pacific Front of World War II, because it really is something that, looking back now, we also have no idea, like, any little details that our military could have known that isn't something taught in history class. I'm a big World War II history buff. I love World War II history, and I think that, like I said, the atomic bomb is justified to have been dropped, because I do think that Japan wouldn't have given up in the same way that Germany would have, because I believe Germany knew that they were getting crushed in from both sides, and they had come to the point where they were already using children to fight in their battles, and Hitler was enlisting a bunch of kids to fight because his military was so destroyed and depleted. And I think if we had invaded Japan, the people of Japan would have gone up and fight and gone into battles against us, and I think it would have been something that would be completely different than what we are used to, especially at that time. I think that the amount of loss of life would have been insane, and the fact that we would still have to be bombing cities and ports and airports in Japan anyways as it is, I think there would have been a huge loss of innocent lives, not the same as the way the atomic bomb did, but I think it would have still been a fairly large amount, to probably 50 to 60% of the amount of innocent lives lost. But I think the amount of military losses would have been exponentially higher, that at the end of the day, we probably would have lost hundreds of thousands of more military people on both sides just from it. If you have any other questions, you can always reach out to me, and I'll be happy to help you with any more of this.